1956. Two fading colonial powers, Britain and France, launch a lightning operation with 80,000 personnel, dozens of warships, and hundreds of aircraft, convinced they can sweep aside Gamal Abdel Nasser and reclaim the Suez Canal. Yet about 100 hours after the first bombs fall, London hits a wall. The pound tumbles, Washington tightens the money tap, and the UN moves in. The mission is aborted mid-advance. How do you win tactically and still lose Suez in 100 hours? This was never just a 100-mile trench through sand. For Britain, Suez was the windpipe of empire, a route carrying the oil that kept industry alive. Prime Minister Anthony Eden convinced himself that Nasser was another Hitler or Mussolini. France agreed, seeing the man arming Algerian rebels. So if Britain and France crushed Egyptian defenses within hours, how did they lose the war in under a week? We'll expose the secret pact that triggered the attack, the rapid thrust that nearly secured the canal, and the financial weapon that forced a ceasefire. 1. The windpipe of empire. Britain bought a 44% stake in the Suez Canal Company in 1875, then occupied Egypt in 1882 to protect it. Even after Egypt's formal independence in 1922, British troops stayed in the canal zone. By the 1950s, Egyptian fury was boiling. In 1954, Nasser, a charismatic Arab nationalist, secured a deal for British troop withdrawal by June 1956. He sought to modernize Egypt with the Aswan Dam. But after he bought arms from Czechoslovakia, the US and UK withdrew dam funding. On 26 July 1956, Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal Company, promising compensation but detonating a global crisis. Eden decides Nasser must go. But with Washington opposed to force, London needs legal cover. What happens next shocks even their closest ally. The secret deal, Sèvres Protocol. Late October 1956, near Paris, Britain, France, and Israel quietly script a war. Israel invades Sinai on 29 October. London and Paris issue a 12-hour ultimatum ordering both sides to withdraw 10 miles from the canal zone. Terms Egypt can't meet. Egypt refuses. Anglo-French strikes start 31 October to protect the canal. Signed after 3 days, this Protocol of Sèvres is the smoking gun of collusion. 29th of October, Israeli paratroopers jump into Sinai. Operation Kadesh begins. 30 October, the ultimatum. As planned, Israel accepts. Nasser refuses. The legal fig leaf is in place. On 31st October, the desert lights up. On the maps, everything works. In Washington, phones start ringing. The clock starts. The lightning invasion. Hour 1. October 31st. RAF and Armée de l'Air smash Egyptian airfields and air defenses. Within roughly a day and a half, Egypt's air arm is crippled. Air superiority shifts to the Allies. Israeli columns slice across Sinai. Hour 72, November 5th. British and French paratroopers drop on Gamil near Port Said and Raswa, Port Fouad, seizing the airfield and key waterworks. Hour 84, November 6th, Royal Marines assault beaches at Port Said, supported by Centurion tanks, and, first time in history, helicopter assault lift from carriers to reinforce inland. Streets fall block by block. By midday, British and French link up. Hour 90, an armored column pushes south toward Ismailia, aiming to secure the whole canal within days. Militarily, the plan is on track, until Cairo scuttles multiple block ships in the canal, closing it for months. The Allies hold the shore, but not the waterway they came to protect. Britain is miles from its objective, but the decisive blows aren't rockets, they're dollars. Why Washington said no. Here's the paradox. Britain called the United States its special relationship. Yet in 1956, America sided with Nasser against London and Paris. Why? First, Cold War strategy. Washington feared that a Western invasion would hand the Soviets a propaganda gift. If Arab states saw the West backing colonial gunboat diplomacy, they might swing straight into Moscow's orbit. Second, oil politics. The US had less dependence on Suez oil, but Europe's economy and NATO's unity depended on it. Eisenhower believed long-term access was safer through Arab goodwill than through British bases. Third, American values. Publicly, Eisenhower couldn't condemn the Soviet tanks in Budapest while ignoring British tanks in Port Said. To the White House, colonialism itself had become a liability in the battle for global influence. And finally, domestic politics. The 1956 US election was days away. Eisenhower didn't want an Allies' reckless adventure to overshadow his campaign or drag America into war in the Middle East. So while British paratroopers were advancing in Port Said, Washington was quietly readying its most devastating weapon: financial pressure. The superpower hammer. The peacekeeper pretense fools no one. With Hungary burning, the invasion torpedoes Western moral authority. Washington fears Arab states will swing to Moscow. The US and USSR both condemn the attack. Khrushchev blusters with rocket threats. Inside roughly 100 hours of the first Anglo-French strikes, sterling slides, reserves drain, markets panic. Britain quietly seeks IMF support. The US blocks relief and signals it could even dump sterling holdings, tightening the noose. At the UN, Lester Pearson and Dag Hammarskjöld move fast to create UNEAF, the first large-scale UN peacekeeping force to replace invaders with blue helmets. Britain is advancing on the ground and cornered financially and diplomatically. Hour 100, November 6th, midnight. With armor only partway down the canal, Eden orders a ceasefire. The French, abandoned by their ally, follow within hours. UNEF troops begin arriving within days. Aftermath: Britain and France, humiliated, except that in the Middle East they don't move without Washington. Eden's career collapses. Israel opens the Straits of Tiran, but must withdraw from Sinai under US-UN pressure, foreshadowing future wars. Egypt/Nasser survives and ascends as Arab nationalism's champion. The canal reopens after salvage. United States steps in as regional guarantor with the Eisenhower Doctrine in early 1957. The balance of power is redrawn. Britain won skirmishes, but lost Suez in approximately 100 hours. Because modern power was markets, oil, and votes, not just tanks and planes. If you want more episodes where maps meet money and missiles, subscribe to GeoStrat.